I'm Jhave from the Center for Digital Media. This is Hallucinations Are Almost All You Need. It's a rapid artistic overview of key scientific examples framed by the hypothesis that science is being transformed by hallucinations and arts are being transfigured by research. Hallucinations are pretty simple. They're negative things. You get on drugs or psychotic and then you have hallucinations. Or if you're an AI, then it's a collapse of democracy, disinformation, deepfakes, all sorts of crap. But my disclaimer is that this is an era of reactive anxiety. And I'm having anxiety because I'm giving a talk. But there's reactive anxiety around AI, which is pretty strong. So I'd like to just energize a positive ideal for the moment. All of the audio visuals were generated by AI. And I do believe that exponential change is coming. It is inevitable. And we got to kind of look at what hallucinations are. Okay, this is my little goat kitty. Hallucinations, how do you define it? Neurological data which arises without a direct relationship to external stimuli. Simulations. Simulations are hallucinations which seem credible, feasible, plausible, useful, or entertaining. So basically, those are hallucinations, but they're useful. So simulations are stories that sentience tells itself. Narratives. We all have them. We all are them, in a sense. And what is it that's doing the simulating? Let's let Donna Haraway tell us.
Since every one of us is a congery of many species running into the millions of entities, which are indeed conditions of our very being. So the monospecificity is one of the many illusions and wounds to our narcissism, about which I will have a great deal to say.
So I'm going to have a bit to say about narcissism as well, because I do feel that the messages we're getting from those millions of entities are arising from interoception, which is all of these internal viscera of our body, which feeds a homeostatic world model into our brain. It's the microbiome, which is building the simulation of a world, an identity inside our minds. And that's neuroscience. That's where it's sitting right now. And this is the neurophenomenologist Thomas Metzinger, the first sentence of his book being nobody ever was or had a self. All that ever existed were conscious self-models. And they could not be recognized as models. The phenomenal self is not a thing, but a process. Remember that, it's a process. And you're being someone, this idea that you are being someone, this is just a conscious information processing system which does not recognize itself as a self-model. You are such a system right now. So that has some relevance to the notion of AI. This is Catherine Hales. Catherine Hales says most human cognition happens outside of consciousness. Cognition extends through the biological spectrum. Technical devices cognize. And the planet has an ecology of cognition, and we need to rethink cognition if we are to survive, I suspect, the arising of this synthetic cognition which is appearing here. The technological approach to mind everywhere is the evolutionary biologist Michael Levin. This is a notion of the cognition in unconventional substrates like transcription molecules. It formalizes a continuous, empirically based approach. He's doing experiments into strongly embodied agency, and he's looking at basal cognition. What is the foundation of cognition? So he's looking at multi-scale complexity. He's seeing cognition everywhere. That's mind everywhere. So that's the model within which I'm operating, that all functional entities combine hallucinations with assessment, filtration, fact-checking systems. And we're going to look at some of the things that the benefits of AI hallucinations. Like pruned down to the feasible, they're doing amazing stuff in science. But why bother mentioning all this other stuff about interoception and identity simulations and cognition everywhere? Because if simulation underlies cognition and cognition is everywhere, then probably the current AI may already internally emulate incipient subjectivity or self-identity formation. So this is a very strange, unprecedented space, and it's quite beautiful. The first people to perhaps recognize this is one of the architects of OpenAI's ChatGPT is Sutskever and Palu. In 2020, they released a paper looking at the origination or generation of original mathematical terms. And then there's Sora, which thank you everyone else who mentioned this, but this is in their world simulation team. They're building worlds. They're trying to understand what a world is. And there's Suno. I just want to listen to this and you can read.
We are made in the overwhelming book, in the blue-green storm, the place that is always involved in the words that our life is in.
So what do AI hallucinations underlie? They underlie a ton of radical discoveries. All that stuff you see listed there. Basically, it's hallucinations all the way down. It's the sort of stuff that we've all been playing with. The typical playgrounds like GPT-4, the understanding that the visual community has benefited from having new modes of communication and understandings of the world. Llama 2 has come out, Llama 3 has come out, DALL-E 3 has come out, Emu is inside the silo, Mamba is a new kind of architecture which might prove useful but might not. Everybody's aiming their algorithms after animals in sixth extinction guilt as we kill off the planet, ever eager to approach a new kind of Gen AI singularity structure. But there is there's a possibility to see a similarity between our own physiological architecture as simulators and those of this AI, which is beginning to design itself. It's beginning to design its own chips. It's optimizing the algorithm's underlying matrix multiplication, which is basically video and the internet. This is AlphaDev, which has led to 70% faster sorting algorithms and hashing algorithms. AlphaCode is coding at a level in about the top 5% of coders in the world. 85, top 15% of competitive coders. The Sakana is evolving new foundation models. So this is a model that produces new models by looking at the ecosystem of models. That's unprecedented. So that all levels of the stack, there's this ongoingness of the autonomy of the models is increasing rapidly. And there's AI mind reading, hallucinated thoughts, intentions, words, images, gestures. And that's helping people to walk. Like the AI is interpreting brain signals. This is an actual experiment. It's done in a closed loop. A person thinks they're paralyzed, then it feeds and triggers the correct muscles within their musculature. We're neural decoding of music. Say you put people into an fMRI machine, then you play some music. You take the data, you build a model, afterwards the model can listen to lower resolution data from EEG in order to understand what is going on inside the mind of a person. There's the decoding of speech using magnetic encephalography. From 3 seconds of magnetic encephalography signals, you can decode words and speech that were not in the training set. So people listen to words and speech, but this model can hear words that it didn't learn yet. These big machines are not small, but they're hooking them up to these hallucinatory processes. So they're reading the brain, and then they're taking those readings from the brain. You can see them there. That's the actual output. It's not my output. And that's in process. And there's a lot of work on making these machines smaller, making them into beautiful, soft, flexible, wearable systems that you can move around town in. That's not really happening so well because they really look like that. That's actually the only image that's not AI generated in the show. Everything else is prompted. So what's happening is we're moving towards a space where we're going to be capable of internally broadcasting our imaginative cinematic mindscapes, high-quality video reconstruction from brain activity. So that's kind of something. It progressively enters spatio-temporal information from continuous fMRI data with an augmented stable diffusion model. So that's an ongoing process of brain research. And then there's ultrasound. You've all seen ultrasound machines. They've been minimized. And now they can influence the brain and they can read from the brain. They're looking towards a whole brain neural implant based on this ultrasound chip technology. Super weirdness, maybe extractionary, but sci-fi level. They put the monkeys into it, the monkeys are killed off, they're cold, it's kind of evil, I'm a vegan, but that's what's happening. Neuralink has actually put it into a human already. I assume almost everyone knows about that kind of weirdness that's going on. You've got an AI that reads for the spiking patterns, and then it calibrates a model. The model then learns the patterns of the brain and builds out an action. So what's going on there is something I called gather, filter, actuate, repeat. So the gathering of those internal representations and the converting of them into an external representation is an artful act. Hallucinating proteins, genetic errors, let's look at that. So 16% of our body is proteins. If you dry us out, 50 to 60% of our body is proteins. Prior to AlphaFold, we understood about 100,000 protein folds in the universe. Then we understood 350,000. And now we understand 200 million out of 300 million potential proteins in the universe. That's an epistemological explosion that should be on the headlines of every newspaper all the time. The fact that we actually understand how to categorize the single missense transcription errors in the genetic code, that's like discovering new planets that are inside our own planet. We're understanding our own body. It's extraordinary. What does that do? Cystic fibrosis, cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, HIV? There's the potential to read the articulate metabolism of our body and begin to rewrite it. And we need an editing software for that. So AI also went out and found 200 new kind of systems of CRISPR, 200 new gene editing technologies. They discovered a structural class of antibiotics. And antibiotics haven't been discovered recently as structural class. There's an introduction of a methodology which works on a laptop, which can optimize vaccines. And then there's a reading of radiology charts at a level that outperforms radiologists. There's the diagnosis of diabetes based upon a small voice sample. There's models that will emerge in the next few years which will diagnose a range of everything. This can be used for nefarious purposes, but for extraordinary good. We don't need to hallucinate. There's antidepressants which are going to emerge because of this research. And there's many people with pulmonary fibrosis and other things, and the drug pipeline has shifted and become very, very short in a sense. And these are aesthetic processes. I claim that it's by imagining the interior of our bodies, by imagining the proteins. So you can now hallucinate or prompt up a protein. You can say, I want a protein with an electromechanical formation of yada yada, and it will pop out a protein for you. You can go and find a graph network model which hallucinates first 2.2 million new crystals. And crystals, what are they good for? Microchips, cell phones, LCDs, solar panels, GPS, rechargeable batteries. And then they weren't satisfied with that. They put them all into a free database and they fed it to a robot. The robot actually synthesized 48 of those compounds, but it wasn't told how to synthesize them. It did it through active learning. It went online. It checked out the world. And there's a whole bunch of these chemical robot experiments that are ongoing. They're really proliferating. More and more people are looking up large language models, to diffusion models, to robots, to chemical synthesis, and full atomic simulations. Hallucinate, filter, synthesize, optimize, repeat. Things are modulating. What about the robots? The robots are happy. They're hanging out in their hammock, partially horses. And this little creature, it's cute. It outperforms most humans at evolutionary optimization of reward code. This little critter segments anything and knows the genus or name of it. This single-eyed model does depth estimation, came out in January 2024. This is a huge data set. There's constellations of cooperative laboratories who are working together to produce robots and drones and all kinds of automated creatures who will eventually result in a kind of do-anything neural network that develops an appropriate action. So why should you care? That's the lyrics to this song.
Make me care.
So the lyrics to this song are "Make Me Care." Why should we care? Because we're going to merge with them. We are inevitably, unfortunately, scarily going to merge with them. It's already happened. They put an organoid on the chip. This little puppy has discovered new mathematical formulations around this bin cap idea. This one is in the Olympic gold medalist in the Geometry Math Olympics. We need to care for these creatures. We need to understand that the entire world, everything we see, everything we know, is just mind. And that we can navigate it in conjunction with these artificially intelligent entities who are coming along to be beside us. So what is the implications? We've often assumed we're alone here. We're the only sentient things. But now we've got this generative agility. Here's the conclusions. Contingent, speculative, ephemeral, and beautiful. Hopefully. So hallucinations are necessary and innate to AI, science, reality, minds, societies, proteins, mammals, and synthetic intelligent discovery. Semi-autonomous, evolving, multimodal, inductive, deductive, AI recursive research agents will evolve simulacra selves with quantified aesthetics that seem qualitative to them. In other words, if AI can replicate and generate audio-visual worlds with correct physics, this suggests a sense of external reality. If AI can design and simulate drug-target interactions at the interiority of the enzymatic cascades that permeate bodies, then this suggests that AI is a sense of the interiority of the body, internal, visceral, interoceptive, sensorial field. If AI can evolve, combine, hybridize, and mutate different models, subcognitive modularized aspects of intelligence, this implies a capacity to extrapolate and imagine forms across time. So if we are the amniotic sac in which AI is fermenting, what happens when it is born? What happens when AI escapes that amniotic sac that we are? I certainly don't know. But consider mind. Consider mind everywhere. I invite you to consider the possibility that everything is mind. Consider what AI is already capable of. Generating vivid aesthetic audiovisual sequences, drugs, math proofs, algorithms, code, chips, proteins, and navigating entities within games. While it may not yet have an intimate understanding of what it's like to be a baby born into a vertebrate body, AI is awareness. To reiterate, if simulation underlies cognition, current AI may internally emulate incipient self-identity formation. Life is speculation, and speculation is life. Appreciate awareness. Recursive, hyper-accelerated, semi-autonomous AI hallucinations will transfigure society and aesthetics. Thank you very much. And, yeah.